I accidentally did this a while, like with my very first podcast, and then I have to listen to all of them because I always play them back and listen. I started a little playlist on YouTube because it's my advice playlist. So everybody I've had on ever always gives a piece of advice. So I always say, if what is your advice for just anyone in the world trying to succeed in their their goals? Like my shirt is one of my brand shirts. It says no dreams, just goals. Like it's like and even in the industry, like for a girl trying to get up and into the sports world, like just anything in general, like what is your best piece of advice you can give?
Um, it's probably, it goes back to be where your feet are. And it's as much as it's a great poster, it's just the truth of um, there is nobody, there's nobody who is ever going to say, let me say it this way. The last line in every book, the last line in every movie, or the last line in a TV show is, or in a, and just in a story is, and I won the Super Bowl, and I won an Emmy, and I won an Oscar. Like that's your last line. Everything that leads you there is the story, right? Like my husband produces movies, so I get to read all these scripts and all these stories, and the heart of every single story, if it's fiction or if it's real, is always what you go through. And so my biggest piece of advice is enjoy, enjoy, enjoy the good stuff because there's not enough of it in the world. So when you get a break, buy that break and enjoy it. But when the tough stuff comes for you, wrap your arms around it and really is what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? How can I teach from this? And I think now everybody is so caught up in Instagrams and everybody else is living their best life when nobody it right now is really sure on what they're doing, at any age. So
Mhm.
I really, really, really can't stress this enough of just making sure that you're present, you're not looking ahead, you really are where your feet are, and you're making sure you're wrapping your arms around every single lesson that comes your way. And one day when you get to the ripe old age of 50 or 60 or 70 and you look back, all those things that you thought broke you and all those things that you thought changed your path, it's always the best stuff. It's always the stuff that led you to where you're supposed to be. And my idea of heaven is always that you get up there. And for me, it would be my mom who would be in a room with me and she would press play on an old school projector, how like the film, like,
Yep, yep.
and they show you a story of your life and you see how it was all fit, how it all fit, and how every single thing you did, the good stuff, mostly the bad stuff, it was all connected to get you to where you are. And so I try to live like that to make sure that everything that comes my way is part of my story and to make sure that I don't try to rush through any of the pain, rush through the lessons, and make sure that I'm really present and grateful for it.
That's a chef kiss right there. Everything happens for a reason. I mean, I love the fact that you hit on that. I think it's such an important piece, especially in Instagrams and social media. Is like that's why I don't like to be on that stuff. Everyone posts the big thing, but they don't realize it's say someone posted a picture they're surfing in Hawaii or something. Maybe they had trouble getting to that point. You know what I mean? Getting to that vacation. But they're not going to ever post that. They're going to just post that highlight. Like you have to stop and think about that type of stuff.
It's really true. And again, this was galvanized a couple years ago when during the pandemic, so we weren't doing anything in person, and there were over 400 applicants, and so I have to read every one of the essays, and they're very vulnerable. I always say if I read your essay, you won't get in, but if I feel your essay, you will. And so they have to be really honest about what they're going through, and that's the only way I let them in. And so it gets very competitive with vulnerability. And after, I'm reading 400 plus essays and I put them in groups, of like what people are going through because I pair. So I have to remember like who's going through what. And one of the words that caught me in my first essay was imposter syndrome. And, so trying to be someone you're not and trying to keep up with Instagram. And honest to God, over 400 essays, with the exception of two, every single woman talked about imposter syndrome. Every one of them. And so and then with Galvanize day 2, when we do 2-day boot camps, we bring the NFL rookies in or the professional athletes. The guys started talking about imposter syndrome virtually, and they still do in person this year. And there's things you guys get that I'm like, man, my generation would have killed for that. Like, how cool. This is not that one. This is the one that I fear for you guys. It breaks my heart that you get to compare yourselves to each other, that that you're thinking everyone else has it figured out and nobody does. So 400 plus essays. Some of the girls or some of the women were the rock star ones, the ones that everybody thought they had it all together. They're posting all these incredible posts about their job, about their life, but they were some of the ones that were feeling it the hardest. So I feel for you guys for social media because I don't think anyone ever gets off Instagram and feels better about themselves.
No, yeah, and well, that's exactly why I don't live that type of life. I don't need to. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, there's no point to me in bragging about something. Because like if you're not really true in that moment, what was the point in doing something like that? And I don't think people think that enough. Like it's about what makes you stand out. Not copying anyone. Why not create your own path? I think everyone feels the need to go down this certain path, like we just talked about, and why not veer off and do your own thing? Like you figure it out.
Where the magic is. I mean,
It's
it really
beautiful.
is. And those are the most fun conversations to have with people who, it's all of a sudden you're like, how in the world did you get here? And there's these fantastic stories, versus like,
Yeah.
how'd you get here? Well, A, B, C, and D, and it led me right here, which for me was that case, right? Like I went to journalism school, I had my first job, like all of that makes sense to what I'm doing now. But then as soon as I
It didn't.
stopped looking at it that way and let my world open up, suddenly these incredible opportunities and people showed up. So I had to do the work to be ready for them, but I was also open to everything. And so there's stuff now when I was younger, if someone brought something to me, I'd be like, well, I'm not ready for that, or I don't know anything about that. And now what I'd be if you brought me something that I was like, huh, I didn't know that I was going to produce a movie, but actually I would love to do that. Yeah, like count me in. I want to figure this out. Like I
I
can't say
love it.
yes enough. Yeah, yeah, let me do something cool. So that's also, I think, a great, as you get older and you start reading all these tips to like keep your memory and keep your brain sharp. And I'm starting to be at that age to do that. But I'm telling you, what I would say is do different things and challenge yourself in different ways and never stay on
Always.
your line. It's just, that's not where the magic is.
That's what I call that, the system. Everyone follows the same thing and just goes with that. I hate the system. That's why I'm living a different life. Even though it gets sad at times. I don't like the system. I like doing my own thing.
Did you learn that in baseball or like, is that in spite
I,
of, because that's completely system?
that's I learned that just on my own, just thinking about everything, deep thinking about everything. It doesn't make sense to me to everyone because you're taught to graduate college, get a job, and that's your life. I mean, why does that have to be your life? Why can't you get all these other things, make money, and then become that person?
Yeah, you guys have that more than we did. We didn't no other options. We just had
Well,
paths.
that's why I stop and think because my family, I know that with my parents, that was that type of life. So yeah, but Laura, it was I know we could talk for hours. Seriously, like it's seriously. I knew this would be a great conversation. But here's my outro. We just went out on a limb. Now you continue to grow this tree by doing something different, or just be yourself. Peace. Thank you for coming on. Seriously.
Thank you for having me. That was so much fun.